moment. Hello, everybody. I think we're live now, so I'm just going to give people a chance to join. So just bear with us for a few seconds. I see some people joining. That's great. Welcome to those joining. Just going to give it a few seconds for people to connect. Okay. Just give it a few more seconds. Okay, Gwyn, if you want to go ahead and make a start, that'd be great.
Great, thank you, Luke. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us. This is obviously the launch of the Verisium Hydromet Network. And I just wanted to say a few words before I hand over to Luke and Ritu for the first presentation. So a lot of you will know Verisium. Hopefully you'll know the personalities involved. You'll know the physical events that we held pre-COVID and the virtual events that we've held subsequently. We've been really pleased by the engagement we've had from our audience, our core audience of Met directors, Met services, of government staff, people from NGOs, people from key funders like the World Bank, and of course the private sector as well. So we feel that we've formed a really engaged coalition of interested parties who all want to share information about the hydromet space, whether that's the latest technology, whether it's on the ground case studies, whether it's policy issues, whether it's funding advice. We realize there's a need for shared information. So as well as having our event opportunities, which happen 4 times a year, 5 times a year, we wanted to create a community where we could host events more frequently and where we could bring people together to schedule meetings with each other, to chat to each other, and to attend regular seminars. And so this is our commitment basically to the hydromet space, that we want to hold a webinar every week. Every month there will be a longer event that you guys can attend. And of course, when we do return to hopefully more normal times and we have our physical events again, those events will be streamed on this platform. So wherever you are in the world, if you can't travel, if you can't spare the time, or there's a safety issue still, you'll be able to watch and absorb that content remotely. So within a year, all of that content stays on forever. It's all available on demand, and it builds up to be a really good resource that can be used by Met professionals, water professionals, development professionals globally. So very quickly, within about 6 months, we're going to be hosting a huge amount of content, all searchable, that you guys can engage with, that you can discuss. The platform itself is simple. We've kept it simple. We want it to be usable. We want it to be intuitive. But beyond watching events, you can schedule meetings with each other. You can use the feed and you can post interesting information. But mainly, it is an opportunity for us to present curated events to a really willing audience. So we hope you find it useful. We'd be very happy to take feedback. This is our first week, our first day of operation. We feel that the platform looks good, it works well, but we're very happy to take constructive criticism on board, any ideas, any suggestions. This has been built to make your lives easier. And so anything that we can do to help, would be really interested to discuss with you and roll out quickly. We're pretty nimble and pretty agile as a company, so we're happy to try new things and happy to try and be as effective as possible. So with that said, thank you all for joining. I can see people are still coming into the virtual room, which is great. Thank you for that. Thanks for attending the first session on the first day of the Hydromet Network. And with that said, I'm going to hand over to Luke. Thank you, Luke, and thank you in advance to Ritu for doing the first presentation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwyn. Appreciate that. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'd like to make an introduction, but firstly, you should be able to see on the page on the right that you will be able to both chat and do a Q&A, so ask any questions as we go along. We're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A at the end, most likely. but please do introduce sort of where you're from and everything. That'd be really good. But I'd like to introduce Ritu Bharadwaj, currently from the International Institute for Environment and Development. I will allow Ritu allow you to introduce yourself. You'll do a much better job than I will, but she's I've worked in many capacities across the climate resilience industry and is an absolute authority in the on the topic. So Ritu, I'll hand over to you. Feel free to share your screen and introduce yourself, and I'll be here if you need anything. But without further ado, over to you, Ritu. Thank you. Just need to unmute yourself there.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I hope my screen is visible. Can you just confirm?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
You just need to
thanks.
start the slideshow from there.
Okay, thanks. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone who have joined this presentation today. And I hope I'm able to do justice within the time permitted. So just to tell you, I'm a senior researcher with International Institute for Environment and Development. I work quite extensively in Asia region, Asian Pacific region, specifically looking into climate resilience issues, particularly in terms of how they interact with social protection program. Now, if you look at the topic of the presentation today, it's Climate Resilience Information System and Planning Tool. So, and that's the acronym for that is CRISP. And this tool we have developed for a program called Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So that's how it got its acronym CRISP-M. Now, essentially, this tool has been designed to support risk-informed early action, planning and monitoring at community level. So before I actually go into the content of what this tool is actually about, I think I should be explaining what this MGNREGS program is so that you can relate that tool as to how that tool is actually helping in planning, implementation, monitoring, and risk-informed early action. So what is this program essentially? This MGNREGS is one of the world's largest public works-based social protection program. And this program is unique because it guarantees, it's a right-based program which guarantees 100 days of wage employment to every rural household in India. And essentially, with the help of that wage employment, it helps in creating natural resource management assets. Natural NRM asset would typically be like soil conservation, water harvesting, water conservation structures, or plantation activity, forestry activity, and so on. So with the help of that wage employment, these are the structures or the assets which are created. If you look at your screen, you'll see the annual budget for this program. So that's why it's called one of the largest public works-based program, which has an annual budget of around 9 billion under normal condition. But in context of COVID, the budget has been increased to 13 to 14 billion per year. And the program has a huge outreach. So it actually benefits around 250 million people currently. So this program is essentially a social protection program, but we are working with the Ministry of Rural Development and trying to help them enhance the climate resilience impact of this program. And we thought, as we were doing the research under this program, we found that climate information played a very important role in this whole process in making sure that the wages and the assets, which is the primary MGNREGS assets for development, for climate resilience and poverty reduction aspect of the screen, climate information played a very important role, especially in terms of decision making, helping the community as well as the MGNREGS functionaries better plan and implement these assets. And as a result of that, I'll explain as to how this tool would support in helping the communities better prepare, cope, and recover from a climate-induced risk or climate-induced crisis or hazard that they might be facing. Now, this CRISP-M is essentially a combination of a web and a mobile phone-based GIS-aided tool that supports in climate resilient planning, implementation, monitoring of MGNREGS. So while I am from IIED, we have developed this tool in, it's not just our institute which has developed, we have developed this in partnership, very close partnership with MP Council for Science and Technology, MPCST, then a National Remote Sensing Center, Indian Meteorological Department, National Institute of Tropical Meteorology, NIH, National Institute of Hydrology, and Ministry of Rural Development. And if time had permitted, I would have explained as to the role that each of these institutions have played, and they have played a very critical role. The moment we call, say, climate information, it has a very long supply chain. It's from institutes like IMD, providing the raw data. Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology is an institution which helps in providing future climate projections. National Institute of Hydrology is an institution that would essentially help in carrying out climate impact assessment, for example, through SWOT analysis. And then we have end users, NRSCs. Again, I'll explain as to what their role has been in terms of providing us with all the GIS related, remote sensing related data. And MORD, Ministry of Rural Development, and all, as well as the MGNRDGS functionaries, right from the national, subnational, and the local level. They are the ones who are the final users or beneficiaries of this data. The strategic approach that we followed in this tool is very important, because these are like our key learnings that we drew from this whole process of development and the piloting of this tool. One, we did not attempt to create a new tool. Rather than, we tried to understand the current landscape of climate information in terms of how it is collected, shared, by whom, and at what frequency. And as you saw in the previous slide, we made use of the existing information, the existing supply chain that was already there in terms of climate information. But we did that in a way that we could create that seamless flow of information. We built on whatever was there. We tried to plug holes or the gaps that was there in the existing climate information governance and the institutional mechanism. But we did not try to create a new parallel system, but rather build on the existing system. We also adopted an approach of co-development. As I said, more than 12 government institutions, ranging from those who were involved from data generation to those who were undertaking analysis to those who were finally using that information, including the community, were involved. Then also, we've seen typically many of these climate-based tools or GIS-based tools, they do not, once they are pilot tested, they're not sustainable. They do not get scaled up to a large extent, because that institutionalization does not happen, because it's a standalone tool. It does not get developed from within the system. And since this tool was going to be used by a government machinery, used by government functionaries, we made sure that we institutionalize this whole effort. So the entire tool, the entire server, and everything has been developed within the system of MP Council for Science and Technology. So it is their experts and their infrastructure which has been used to under which this whole tool is embedded, and from where this tool functions. Then we also made sure that we had a proper communication within this tool, so that information that was being provided to the community or MGNRDGS functionaries was in a format that they could understand, could decipher, could then make use in their decision making. That's typical, because when we started preparing or developing this tool, the typical feedback that we got from many of these community members or these functionaries was that they, even in the past, so much effort has been done, but they were not able to understand. They were provided climate projection or future climate change projections, but they were not able to interpret some of those information. So we made sure that we at least covered or fixed that climate information communication issue. And we all know that climate information projections, they come with uncertainty, but that doesn't mean we don't use them. So what we tried to do for addressing that gap was to use both a top-down as well as a bottom-up approach. And that I'll explain as to how we were doing this. So this tool essentially has 3 elements to it. One is a drought early warning system. Second is a climate risk informed asset planning. And then there is a component of monitoring. And where we are in this process, so far we have piloted CRISP-M tool in 18 village panchayats in a place which is a Nivali block in a Barwani district of a state called Madhya Pradesh in central India. The whole purpose behind this whole piloting process was, when we started doing this, the piloting of the tool in December till March, April, when it finally, we could bring it in a shape where we could start sharing it externally, was we created a very strong feedback loop with the community, with the functionaries who were using it. And as they were using it, they kept giving us feedback, and we kept working on their feedback and their suggestions and improving upon the tool, so that the tool in future becomes more usable and more user-friendly for them to be using them in the way they plan and implement and monitor this scheme using the tool. So in terms of scaling it up, our whole plan is that we will start off with piloting in the first phase in 2 districts. So we'll completely saturate 2 districts in Madhya Pradesh. And then in the second phase, we'll scale it up in 7 states. Now, so this is how the web-based platform of the tool looks like, but we are still working on improving the look and feel of this website. But as you can see, there are 3 elements within the web-based interface, which is a climate projection, which is basically a climate observatory where we have all the information pertaining to future climate projection. And the whole idea of keeping this there was, although we have developed this tool for MGNREGA scheme, but we want this interface to be used for planning of other rural development or other development intervention at the state, district, and block level or the local level. So in order for convergence or prospective planning at the district level to take place. The second element is the drought assessment, and the third element, as you can see, is the community asset management. So I'll just first take you through the drought assessment component of this tool, just to provide you a small background. So when I started off my presentation, I said that MGNREGA provides 100 days of guaranteed wage employment to every rural household. So that's under normal condition. But this scheme also has a climate resilience tool or climate resilience instrument within the way the scheme has been designed. So under normal condition, it provides 100 days of employment, but if in case in a particular place, a drought of a severe category has been announced, then instead of 100 days, a family is eligible to 150 days. So they are provided 50 days of additional wage employment. But then the problem is the declaration of drought. So this additional 50 days is not provided to the household unless the drought of severe category is declared. And in our research on the ground, we found that this whole drought declaration process is delayed by up to 4 to 6 months. And only about 4% of the families that we had surveyed said that they could actually make use or avail that facility of additional 50 days of employment. So we thought, this is definitely an area. And when we try to understand from the state government as to why there is this whole delay in declaration of drought, we came to know that there is a new manual for drought declaration. I'm saying new, but it was declared in 2016. But the whole problem with this new manual of drought management is because it prescribes new scientific indices and parameters for a more accurate drought assessment in the country. Now, earlier on, but it has like very stringent criteria, and most of the state governments, they do not have this infrastructure or the capacity to monitor all those drought-related impact and meteorological parameters and announce them in time. And then also there's another issue which is a little bit political in nature, is typically before this manual for drought management of 2016 came in, drought of any category was eligible for getting 50 days of additional employment. But after this manual came in, only severe category of drought was eligible, which meant that the state governments delayed. And for that, it meant that the state government would not get the grant from the central government for that additional 50 days unless it was a severe category. So they delayed the drought declaration to the point that it became from moderate to a severe category. So what have we tried to do? So what we have tried to do, we have taken note of drought of all the 3 categories. So meteorological, hydrological, and agricultural, because we realized when we did research on the ground that, meteorological drought is not the correct way of assessing the drought-like condition, because during a period, even if there is a dry spell, then agricultural drought kicks in. But overall, if the average rainfall during the whole monsoon period, it catches up and becomes normal, then, then although the farmer has suffered agricultural drought, they do not really get benefit of drought or drought related grant or support services. So we thought of covering all the three categories of drought. And how did we do that? I'll just quickly skip to my next slide so that I can explain it to you how it works. And I hope it's all visible to everybody. So basically, within this tool, we have kept two drought indicators, which is standard precipitation index and dry spell, and which is like meteorological drought indicators. And then we have three impact indicators, which is vegetative cover index. We have also covering NDVI, then moisture adequacy index, and then reservoir storage index. So essentially BCI and MAI helps in monitoring the agriculture related drought, and then RSI helps in hydrological related parameters of the drought. So, and we keep collecting this data or information. This information keeps getting updated at a gap of 24 to 48 hours. So it keeps getting updated. So the moment these two meteorological drought indicators, any one of them gets into, if it goes beyond the threshold level, which has been defined, the reference points which have been defined, the moment it goes beyond reference point, the drought trigger is activated for any of these two indicators. Then this tool starts sending out SMS, WhatsApp, and email alerts to the MGNRDGS functionaries and community members. And then once the first trigger has been alerted, then it starts sending them regular updates on the three impact indicators as to what the condition is on the BCI, whether MAI is mild drought. For example, if you can see in the screenshot, it says MAI is mild drought, RSI is normal, and BCI is good. So mild, moderate, severe, it keeps giving them a real-time update. And this is how this information flow takes place. So essentially, we are trying to source data from a number of sources like NRSC, USGS, Indian Council for Agricultural Research. So basically automated data updation on rainfall, NDVI, MAI, BCI, soil moisture, hydrology, and so on. And then it keeps generating these maps. So I've not given all the screenshots here, but we typically have the state-wise as well as district and the block-wise. You can get that report, you can generate that report, you can mail it to yourself if you're registered. Then you keep getting these SMS, email, and WhatsApp alert that we are doing anyways for the MGNRDGS functionaries. So this is how the first component of the tool works. Then we have the second component, which is community asset management. So I said, so this drought early warning system essentially helps in three areas. One is to help them plan for that additional 50 days of wage employment. Two, it also helps them identify if there are any agro advisories that need to be given to the villagers in terms of farming management or their irrigation management. And then also start preparing for these assets. So because this wage employment would actually lead to creation of these assets. Now, when I talk about assets, typically the assets that get created as a result of that wage employment are natural resources management. And what does it lead to? So if you construct stop dams, check dams, gully plugs, contour trenches, it basically helps in soil and moisture conservation, groundwater recharge, biodiversity conservation, sustainable food production, and so on. So all of which can actually help in creating resilience against current and future climate crisis or any hazard that comes up. Or it helps community in absorbing that stress to some extent. While this scheme has a huge potential in creating that resilience, our research showed that only about 18 to 29% of the households had actually been able to develop absorptive and adaptive resilience capacity as a result of the assets created through this program. And some of the reasons what we could understand for this was, despite huge potential, despite all these check dams, gully plugs, groundwater recharge structures being created, it was still not leading to drought proofing or flood resilience because many of these structures were created on a very ad hoc manner. So, without any ridge to valley approach, without any landscape in mind, these structures were created on a case by case basis. So what we try to do is within this tool, we have this asset management component where we have tried to integrate about 8 to 9 parameters. For example, watershed boundary, because I said ridge to valley approach. So we wanted to use a catchment-based approach to the planning of these assets. So a watershed boundary, land use and land cover, geomorphology, the soil type, geology, groundwater prospects, contour and side slope, drainage characteristics, and lineament. And using all these, so each of these layers, so we got this information from National Remote Sensing Center, a fairly good and updated data sets. We digitized each of these layers, and then we layered it with climate risk information. So climate impact assessment, which was done through the SWOT modeling, soil and water assessment tool, where NIH provided us with the data. And that information was integrated with the existing GIS, with all these GIS layers of information. So how is it supposed to help? One, short-term planning for those additional 50 days of wage employment and crop selection irrigation plan. And in long-term, in terms of choice, quality, and design of assets, so that those structures are made in a ridge to valley approach. So depending on whatever landscape there is, it could help in a long-term drought management or flood resilience or reduction of soil erosion or enhancing the rejuvenation of river flows and so on. So this is how this tool works. You can see on the right, we have these layers of information. And then on the left, we have this delineation mode and a select mode, which it also has a provision to calculate runoff, generate report, or download report, or generate chart. So these are basically essentially the features that you will see on the map. The resolution for this map is very high. You can see it's like 2.5 meter resolution. So in a delineation mode, how this tool works is if you click on any point in the map. So if a villager can go, because typically this planning for this scheme has to happen at the village level. So when the villager actually goes on the ground and he can click on any point in the map, then what it does at any point. So the moment you click on that point, then it delineates the catchment for that area. I don't know whether it's visible on the screen, but it delineates the moment you click on any point, it delineates the catchment. And then it gives you a prompt that rainfall runoff has been executed. And then it gives you, for that particular point, it gives you the historical runoff, the current runoff, and the future runoff in that particular location. And on the basis of that, it then provides you the structure which is most suitable for that particular location, given the current, future, and the historical, current, and future runoff, as well as the other parameters, for example, geology, soil morphology, lineament, drainage characteristics. So taking all those parameters into consideration, it gives the structure or list 1 or 2 options of the structures which is most suitable for that location. So that was in the delineation mode. The moment you go on the select mode and you click on any particular village boundary or any particular location on that map, what it gives you is this chart which opens up, which gives you the location detail. As if you can see, it shows that the village panchayat, the gram panchayat is Punjari. This is the geology. So it's unclassified basaltic flows, geomorphology. Then it says groundwater prospects are poor. Then land. So what is the land use, slope, watershed code, etc. Then it also gives you the in terms of the water demand. So what is the domestic water demand? What is the agricultural water demand? Then in terms of climatic information, it gives you the annual percentage change in the rainfall that is expected in that area, the annual percentage change in the groundwater recharge, and annual percentage change in the water yield. So this is essentially drawn from the SWOT modeling analysis based on the climate information. And then within that, it then gives you which structure. So I told you, based on that lineament information, the catchment area, it says here that farm pond or field bunds are the most suitable structure to be built in that particular location. But we also wanted to make sure that so this is not sacrosanct. So if a community member sees that in his land or in his plot of land, farm pond or field bund has been selected, but he actually thinks, no, I want to go ahead and try out a new structure. I want to go and select another structure. So he always has this option of selecting some other structure which he suits is more suitable to his requirement, and then update this map. Then this particular prompt, it also gives climate information and then the monitoring information. So this is interesting because you can see this time series data. So it gives you timeline of 2016, the data on total agricultural land, total built up area, watershed area, forest area, watershed body area, and total area. Whereas in time series of 2019, as compared to 2016, you can see that the agricultural area has increased. So from 996, it has increased to 1,003. The built-up area remains the same, but the watershed area, wasteland area has reduced. So, an assumption could be made that the wasteland area, which has reduced from 252 to 244, actually got converted into agricultural land. And similarly, the forest area has remained unchanged, but the water body area has actually increased. So if you can draw a correlation, you can see that because watershed, and this is a remote sensing based data, this is not a manually entered data. So based on the remote sensing map, so if you slide on the map, there's a time series tool available. So if you slide on the map, it gives you how this land has changed. So how the wasteland has got, which area the wasteland has got reduced, where the agricultural area has got increased, where the water bodies have actually been constructed. So you can see whether the water bodies are the reason, water bodies constructed within the scheme is the reason why agricultural land has come up, has gone up, or wastelands have reduced. Then this, as I told you, this tool also has a bottom-up integration. So it has both top-down. So in the top-down, you see was the component of the tool that I just explained. But in the bottom-up, we are using a mobile application. Why a mobile application? Because this scheme says that all the planning has to happen at the village level. It is the village panchayat representatives who have to decide which structure has to be built where, and it has to be, the ultimate aim is that all these structures should ultimately lead to improving the, taking the families or graduating the families beyond their poverty level, out of the poverty level. So how does this tool, so with this GIS based map, once this GIS based map is generated, we have two village facilitators who go to the village panchayat. It's almost like if anyone has been in the development sector in previous decades or so, they would know this participatory rural appraisal tool, which was being used quite extensively. So this GIS-based map with very high resolution, it typically acts like a PRA technique, where we actually take this map on the ground. We ask the villagers to start identifying which plot belongs to whom. They start identifying, okay, they start identifying these are the key landmarks in the village. And based on that, we start ground truthing some of the plan or the structures that has been suggested by the GIS map, GIS and climate information based map. And then based on that, we start going to the individual field level and using the water balance tool, which I just showed to you in my previous slides. They actually start doing this assessment of the water balance in terms of what is the catchment of that particular field, what is the structure most suitable based on the geomorphology, the soil characteristics, and so on. And in case that farmer feels that the structure which has been suggested is not correct, then he always has the option of changing that structure. So we are not, this plan is not thrust upon the villagers, but then they have this option to change that, but also not just change that, but also digitize his choice in the overall GIS map. So this is how the mobile, some of these screenshots that I've kept here in the slide, it allows for asset planning, drought early warning systems. So quite a lot of these tools which was available in the web-based is also available here, but within this tool, we also have this mobile application. We also have this facility for participatory vulnerability assessment. So communities then use this, the questions that are there within this mobile application to undertake based on their population, based on the amenities that they have, kind of small, marginal, and large farmers that they have, the income level, the land use. So all these characteristics are then inputted so that a participatory vulnerability assessment is carried out. And this is how this tool actually works. So the villager actually goes to the farmland of a particular farmer. He can go, he can So if he selects all the details, he gets the latitude, longitude, and other locational detail. And this is the suggested structure, for example, in this particular location, like irrigation dam. But if he wants to change it to farm pond, he has the option to change it to farm pond, take a picture of that particular location. And then within MGNR Regis, every household has a unique job card number. So that is how his household is identified uniquely. So they enter the beneficiary code and then they upload it. So that means that his choice gets registered within the GIS map. If he wants, if he's satisfied with whatever structure has been suggested by the map, then he can retain that structure. He doesn't need to change. But what he can do is he can ground truth that data, which has been presented by the GIS or the top-down model. He can accept that, take a picture, and upload it. This tool also has this facility for crowdsourcing of monitoring data. So typically, what happened earlier on, they would if a structure needed repair. So for example, here you have seen this, this is a picture of the existing structure. So if an existing structure is there in a village and the villager feels that it needs repair, it's broken, and has not been maintained properly, he can always click a picture, upload that picture on the app so that it draws the attention of relevant functionaries, and then they can take initiative to repair or maintain or include that structure in the next shelf of project. And based on, once this whole map or data is entered, then the village panchayat can generate the map for the entire village panchayat. So you can see within this map, all the structures have been identified. They can also get a list of all the structures which have been identified. And they also keep getting the monitoring, so time series wise monitoring data. And they can simply take a printout of this and submit it to the relevant authorities for approval. So this is my final slide, which is basically, through this tool, what we're trying to do, we try to make it inclusive, representative of the needs, and also we made sure that there's enough collaboration between those who are generating to those who are finally using this this tool for their decision making. We have tried to make it user friendly. We have a dashboard approach. We have tried to make it simple for the villagers to understand, and also for the MGNR Regis functionaries. At higher level functionaries, it is still easier for them to understand and use this tool, but functionaries or the officials who are managing this program at the local level, sometimes it's a challenge for them to understand some of these complex tools and terminologies with regard to climate information. So we have tried to make this tool as user-friendly for them with a dashboard approach, with icons that they can understand. We are also planning to invest a lot in an e-learning module and capacity building. We have integrated a monitoring system. We have a system of, and even in the current form, this tool, we are never saying that this is a final tool. We have integrated a very strong feedback loop because we know this tool needs customization. Every area would not be the same. So if it changes from one location to the other, and if the needs of the communities are different, if they feel that this tool needs to be improvised in a certain way so that it becomes more usable to them, then we have that feedback loop where it can constantly keep getting feedback and improving upon the existing system that they have. So with that, I'll end you and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Rita. That's fantastic, very interesting. I think the audience will be really interested to speak with you further about this. But we've got a couple of questions. One of them is, where mostly has this been used, and how has it been going since sort of inception? Have you had to sort of tweak things, change things, or is it working as you intended?
Absolutely. So Luke, as I was explaining while I was presenting, so we started using this tool in December last year, and we till now, so that was more of a pilot testing phase. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of these chat messages. So it was going through a pilot testing phase, and we did that in Badwani district, which is part of the central Indian state, which is called Madhya Pradesh in India. The whole idea, and from December onwards, still I would say April, we continuously kept revising, modifying the tool. Even this mobile application that you see, it has gone a tremendous change from where it was there, where we started in December to where it is now. And we thought it was essential because without that, nobody knew. Even for us, that bottom-up model, we didn't have a prototype that we could follow. So for us, it was a challenge, but we learned as we developed the tool.
Makes sense. Thank you. What about, is there any plans to take it outside of India?
So yes, so we had a lot of, so IID, as you know, is working very extensively in different regions in the world. And we have already got a lot of interest in taking this tool, customizing this tool for some of our projects in Ethiopia, in other parts of Africa. So, and yes, this tool, the way I was explaining, the strategic approach, that's an approach that almost can be followed in any part of the world, and especially in developing world, because India, I would say, we face similar governance, institutional data challenges like any other part of the world. And that's the beauty of this tool, that this tool can be customized to any other part, to almost most of the global south. So yes, we do have an interest. We are discussing it with some of our partners, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Fantastic. Got a question from Kadid Tao. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong there. Saying that they had a bit of connection issue, but they found the presentation very interesting. And I'll read the question. They would like to know which part of the components of the tools are disseminated to local communities, and are they able to interpret the information sent to them?
So almost all component of the tool is transmitted to the community, whether it is the web-based as well as the mobile application-based. So a community member can view all the components that are there in the web-based application within their mobile application. And we have used a lot of these icons so that they can interpret. They don't really need to understand that technical terminology, and they're able to use the icons. It's right now the screenshots are in English, but it's there in the local language so that they can understand. And yes, so it's almost every component of the tool is available to the village community as well as the local functionaries. But the only advantage in India right now is we have a very strong penetration of mobile data, and smartphones is something that you see almost everywhere. But one feature that I forgot to mention was, in all the planning process, this mobile app has a offline facility as well. So you can take the mobile in a village where it does not have a good network facility.
Makes sense.
You can use it for the planning. You can identify, update all the structures on that. And whenever you get to an area where you have a good network connectivity, you can simply upload and update the plan.
Got it. Yeah, because there was someone asking about remote areas. So that's the workaround to deal with bad coverage, I suppose. Yes. Yeah, makes sense.
So that's a feature that we only realized later on to add. So that's the benefit of a feedback loop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really key point, that you're getting that feedback and you're working it into the system. And we've got another question from Lazarus from Zimbabwe, Great Zimbabwe University, I believe. So it's just asking about, is it possible to get a write-up of the step-by-step processes? I mean, I know that the actual presentation, we've made it available on the session to download the PDF, but is there anything, I guess, in more detail that you could share? Perhaps Lazarus could reach out to you directly.
Yes, he can reach out to me directly. And also, we are just in the process of finalizing a paper, which will be done in 2 weeks' time. And we'll be very happy to share that. It provides a very detailed description of what this tool is, how it functions. And in case you want to replicate it somewhere, you can basically not replicate the whole part. If you want to replicate parts of it, again, you can use modules of it to suit your requirement. So yes, Lazarus, will be, if you reach out to me directly, I'll be happy to share that paper once it is finalized in about 2 weeks' time, is what I'm hoping.
Perfect. No, that's great. Ritu, thank you so much. We're just out of time there, but if anyone thinks of anything, you'll be able to find Ritu on the network. You know, what one of the key features of this is networking. So, please do reach out directly if you have any more questions. I'm sure you'd be happy to answer those, Ritu. Additionally, again, the PDF is going to be attached to this session on here, which will also be on demand within about a couple of hours. So if you go back and you want to rewatch it, or you want to download the PDF to look through the presentation, by all means do so. But Ritu, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Very insightful. That was our first webinar of the network. So, we appreciate you breaking the ice for us on that. So, yeah, we hope to see you again for another session at some stage. But any closing remarks from yourself?
So thank you so much, Luke, and also to Gwen. And it's really interesting. For me, it's very exciting to be part of this network. And I am really honored to be the first speaker. But I do hope that we continue with this platform. The whole approach, the whole concept is really great. I believe it's like more of a marketplace where we bring together a lot of these different stakeholders together. And that's, I think, the need of the hour. We need to learn from each other. We need to understand what's happening in different parts of the world. And because there are different stakeholder groups available, so you can always do the matchmaking and, when you're thinking of scaling up any good idea. So yes, great effort, Luke, and to Verisian, thanks so much.
No, pleasure. I think you've described it better than we have, so thank you. That's great. Thank you again for your time. Everybody watching, we appreciate you attending. Enjoy the rest of your days. Stay safe and everything, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Ritu.
Bye.